Welcome to today's deep dive. I'm your host, and I'm so glad you're joining us for this one. Think about the last time you snapped at someone over something just incredibly minor.
Oh, like when a coworker questions an idea or
Right.
or someone cuts you off in traffic.
Yeah, exactly. And suddenly your heart rate just spikes. You probably brushed it off later thinking, oh, I was just stressed or I'm tired.
Yeah, you rationalize it. We all do. I'm so excited to be here to break down the psychology of this with you today because the truth is usually a lot more complicated than just being tired.
It really is. Because according to this profoundly perspective-shifting essay we're diving into today, that wasn't the adult you reacting in traffic at all.
Not even a little bit.
No, that was the 10-year-old version of you, still living actively inside your nervous system, just kind of banging on the walls.
It's a wild concept to accept, honestly, because we operate under this massive collective delusion that adulthood is a finished state.
Oh, completely.
We treat maturity like it's a construction project, right? You pour the foundation in childhood, put up the drywall in your teens, and then by your 20s,
Someone just hands you the keys.
right, they hand you the keys and say, there you go. You're an adult. The house is done.
The house is done. And we cling to that idea because, well, it's safe. We really want to believe those walls are rigid and the paint is completely dry.
Naturally, it gives us a sense of control.
But today, our mission is to explore an essay titled The Architect and the Echo. And its entire goal is to completely dismantle that architectural blueprint.
It really tears it down to the studs.
It does. The author
Yeah.
presents us with this beautiful, really complex paradox. The phrase is, I am my child, you are my children.
That line alone is just wow.
Right. And whether you are currently raising kids or planning to, or honestly, if you just exist as a human being who survived childhood, this text is going to fundamentally force you to reconsider everything you thought you knew about your own emotional reactions.
To even begin to grasp the weight of that paradox, I mean, we really have to look at the mechanics of how our past selves actually operate in the present day.
Yeah.
Because the brain doesn't just overwrite our previous stages of development like a software update. It's not a hard drive. The text gives us a much more accurate visual, which is the Matryoshka doll.
The Russian nesting doll.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because when I read that part, it genuinely stopped me in my tracks.
It's such a visceral image.
It really is. The author argues that the adult you see in the mirror isn't this solid block of wood. That adult is merely the outermost shell of the nesting doll.
Just a shell.
And the language the essay uses is so deliberate here. It says that outer shell is painted with the lacquer of responsibility, vocabulary, and survival.
What's fascinating here is the specific function of lacquer. Let's think about that. It's a thin, shiny coating.
Very thin.
Right. It seals the wood, makes it look polished, and it protects it from the elements. So your adult vocabulary, your ability to, pay a mortgage, your professional demeanor in a meeting.
Pretending you know what a 401k is.
Exactly. That's all lacquer. It's a highly functional survival mechanism, but it is not the core of who you are.
It's essentially a sophisticated disguise.
Right.
I mean, it makes me wonder if adulting is really just us wearing this incredibly heavy lacquered overcoat of tax bracket knowledge
Right.
just to hide the fact that we're basically a bunch of kids stacked up on each other's shoulders underneath.
That's the perfect way to visualize it because when you open that outer shell, the text is very explicit about what you find. You don't find a slightly smaller adult.
No, you find the unsure adolescent.
You open the adolescent and you find the 10-year-old, the one who scraped their knees on the asphalt and felt that intense burning shame.
Oh, man.
You open that one and there's the 5-year-old. And if you keep going, at the absolute center, you find the earliest, most instinctual version of yourself.
The wide-eyed one.
Yes. Wide-eyed, terrified, joyful, just absorbing the world without a single filter.
But the crucial point the essay makes, and this is what really shifts the paradigm for me, is that these inner dolls are not dormant. They aren't memories sitting behind glass in a museum.
No, they are highly active participants in your daily life.
They really are.
Yeah.
The author gives this incredible example of feeling a sudden, just unadulterated rush of joy when it starts snowing. You know that specific urge to just stick your tongue out and catch a snowflake?
Oh, absolutely.
That's not the lacquered adult experiencing that joy.
Not at all.
And conversely, when you get inexplicably defensive over a tiny piece of constructive criticism at work.
That is the center doll knocking against the wood.
Right.
From a psychological standpoint, this makes complete sense. When we experience a trigger, whether that trigger is immense joy or a perceived threat, Our nervous system doesn't always check the calendar.
It doesn't know it's 2026.
Exactly. It simply recognizes a familiar emotional frequency, and it responds with the coping mechanism we developed at the exact age we first felt that feeling. The essay establishes a foundational rule here, which is you do not outgrow your childhood, you encircle it.
You encircle it. Wow.
Ah,
Which means we carry an immense responsibility, don't we?
a massive one.
Because if we haven't outgrown those younger versions of ourselves, then the essay mandates that we are tasked with being the guardian of our own history.
The guardian. I love that phrasing.
Yeah, the text talks about reparenting the ghost of your own youth. Like, we actually have to validate the fears of that inner 10-year-old and metaphorically hold their hand as we cross the busy streets of our adult lives.
And that requires a really radical shift in self-compassion. You are essentially managing an entire timeline of emotional needs within a single nervous system.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It is. You are your own dependent.
So that establishes the first half of the paradox. I am my child. We are walking around as this crowded ecosystem of past selves. But if our internal world is already that layered and complex, the obvious question becomes, well, what on earth happens when we physically create a new life?
Oh, right. When you bring someone else into the mix.
Exactly. When that deeply internal, private nesting doll situation is suddenly thrust out into the external daylight in the form of a baby.
That brings us to the essay's concept of the mirrors walking the earth, the arrival of the next generation. The author argues that children arrive as blank slates, but, and this is a key phrase, they are written on with the ink of your history.
Now, hold on. I need to push back on that phrase a little bit, just for the sake of anyone listening who might be feeling defensive. The ink of your history.
Sure.
If we're saying that children are just these walking blueprints of our own unhealed baggage and biological quirks, doesn't that completely strip them of their individuality?
It sounds like it might, yeah.
Are we just dooming them to be clones of our internal nesting dolls?
It's a vital concern. And honestly, it's exactly the fear most self-aware parents harbor. Like, am I just going to pass on all my worst traits?
Right. Am I ruining them already?
Exactly. But the text draws a very sharp distinction here to prevent that kind of fatalism. The essay explicitly states that children are entirely unique individuals, distinct and separate. They have their own souls, their own temperaments, their own paths.
Okay.
The difference we have to understand is between the materials and the architecture.
Okay. Unpack that distinction for me. Materials versus architecture.
Think of it this way. You pass down your biology, your behavioral modeling, the emotional atmosphere of your home. Those are the building materials. You're handing them bricks and wood.
I see.
But the child is the architect of their own house. They will take those familiar materials and construct something entirely new and unpredictable.
Oh, that makes sense.
You might see your own stubbornness in the literal set of their jaw, or hear your specific cadence of laughter coming from the next room, but they are using those traits for their own purposes. Ah, okay. So the realization of "you are my children" isn't about ownership. It's not cloning.
Not at all.
It's the profound shock of seeing fragments of your internal world operating autonomously. You're watching your legacy test the environment that you've provided.
And because they are using your materials, they inevitably become the ultimate mirror. The essay points out that the fears you thought you had successfully hidden under layers of lacquer, those fears will often manifest in them.
Oh, absolutely.
It forces your hidden anxieties right out into the daylight.
But the text also offers a beautiful flip side to that, doesn't it? It says the dreams you abandon, the passions you kind of let go of because, life got in the way.
Yeah.
You will occasionally see those spark in their eyes too. It gives you a second chance to nurture those dreams, but this time, as the author writes, from the outside in.
It's a profound opportunity. So we have these two immense psychological realities colliding.
You have your internal nesting doll, the child within you who still desperately needs protection. And you have your external mirrors, these distinct individuals who carry the ink of your history. The entire essay builds to the moment these two forces interact in a crisis.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because this is the turning point of the whole text. The essay asks us to visualize a very specific, painful scenario.
It's a tough one to read.
It is. Your child comes to you crying. Maybe they feel completely misunderstood by the world, or they are paralyzed by the fear of failing at something, or they've just been deeply wounded by a harsh word from a friend.
Right. They're just broken in that moment.
They are broken.
Yeah.
And as the parent, you drop what you're doing. You kneel down to get on their eye level, and you speak words of comfort, strength, and unwavering love. You tell them they are safe, they are worthy, and that their feelings are totally valid.
The author asks us to pay very close attention to the acoustics of that moment, the physics of that interaction.
Yes.
Because the profound realization here is that the words you are speaking do not only travel outward.
They travel inward at the exact same time.
Exactly.
When I read this, the mechanics of it just blew my mind. Because yes, you are using your vocal cords to soothe the physical child standing right in front of you.
Yeah.
But structurally, neurologically, who else is hearing those words of unconditional love and safety?
The center doll.
Yes.
The 10-year-old inside of you who perhaps never heard those exact words when they were the ones crying with scraped knees. The adolescent who felt misunderstood and was met with dismissal instead of empathy.
It's the concept of retroactive healing. You are actively utilizing your current, lacquered adult capacity for love to rewrite the emotional deficit of your own past.
It's amazing.
By stepping up to be the parent your physical child desperately needs in that exact second, you retroactively become the parent your inner child always deserved.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, let's look at the underlying psychology of why this works so radically. When you extend deep, unflinching compassion to a child in distress, your brain is generating the neurochemistry of empathy and safety. So by recognizing your own childhood pain reflected in your child's eyes, you are essentially tricking your brain into extending that same profound self-compassion to your own unresolved trauma.
Wow.
You are wiring a totally new emotional response to an old trigger.
So the acoustics of the echo actually short-circuit the trauma loop.
Okay, disrupt it completely.
The text states that this specific mechanism, this dual healing, is how the cycle of generational trauma is finally broken, and a cycle of generational healing begins.
Yeah.
You stop passing down the unhealed wounds because you are treating them at the source simultaneously. You are comforting the mirror in front of you and soothing the ghost living inside of you.
Which forces us to completely reevaluate our relationship with time itself. If every single act of mindful parenting is secretly a dual act of reparenting, we aren't just moving forward on a straight line anymore.
No, we're not.
The essay returns to that core paradox. I am my child, you are my children.
So what does this all mean for us? The author describes it as realizing you are both the canvas and the painter, a timeline folded in on itself.
Right.
But I'll be honest, I struggled a bit with how to actually visualize that. How do we hold the past, present, and future in our heads all at once without just feeling incredibly overwhelmed?
It is overwhelming, but the text provides a brilliant grounding metaphor for this. The rings of a tree.
Oh, I loved this part.
Think about how a tree grows. It doesn't discard its earlier stages. The sapling isn't erased when the tree becomes a towering oak. That center ring from its first year of life is still right there in the middle of the trunk.
Still there.
In fact, if that center ring rots, the entire massive canopy above it becomes structurally compromised.
The new growth literally relies on the integrity of the old growth.
Precisely. The tree is every single year of its growth, held simultaneously. Mining the emotional depths of your own past, tending to that center ring, isn't an act of just dwelling on history.
Right, it's not wallowing.
No.
Uh.
It is the active, structural work required to support the future you are currently raising.
That reframes the entire concept of responsibility. It means we are fundamentally a bridge. The text says we have to honor the history that shaped us, while carefully shaping the history of those who follow.
Yes.
We are raising ourselves through them, and we are guiding them through the hard-won wisdom of our own inner child.
This raises an important question, though. It means you are no longer that static, finished house we talked about at the beginning. You are a conduit between what was and what will be.
A conduit. The essay closes that thought with such an incredibly moving image. It describes it as carrying the past in your heart while holding the future by the hand.
That's just beautiful.
It's a breathtaking way to view your daily interactions. It takes the mundane, sometimes exhausting reality of raising a kid, or even just dealing with your own emotional triggers.
Which can be so tedious day to day.
Exactly. It takes all of that and elevates it to this grand, interconnected timeline.
To be a truly effective architect for the next generation, you cannot just focus on the new building. You have to be willing to listen to the echo of your own.
Okay, let's take a second to absorb the ground we've covered today, because this text really takes you on a journey.
It really does.
We started by stripping away the illusion that adulthood is a completed state. We realized instead that we are all walking matryoshka dolls, carrying every past version of ourselves right beneath a thin layer of lacquer.
And from there, we looked outward. We examined how creating a new generation externalizes that inner world. We learn to see our children not as blank slates, but as unique architects building their own lives using the familiar materials of our history and our biology.
And that brought us to the absolute core of the essay, the beautiful acoustics of the echo.
The echo, right.
The realization that when we speak outward to comfort a child, the words travel inward. That we can actually achieve retroactive healing and break generational trauma by offering the grace we currently possess to the inner child we still carry.
So, for you listening to this right now, the practical application of this essay is an invitation to look in the mirror entirely differently starting today. Stop demanding that the person looking back at you be a completed, rigidly perfect adult with dry paint and solid walls.
Yes. Acknowledge the lacquer. We all have to wear the heavy overcoat. We have to show up to meetings and pay our taxes.
Unfortunately, yes.
That's the reality of survival. But honor the center doll knocking against the wood. The next time you feel a sudden, inexplicable wave of defensiveness or, a burst of unprompted silly joy, don't dismiss it as
Or
irrational.
push it down.
Recognize the 10-year-old inside your nervous system who is reacting to the world. Extend to yourself the exact same hard-won grace and patience that you would so easily give to a child standing right in front of you.
Because treating yourself with that level of empathy isn't indulgent. As the text shows us, it is the very mechanism of healing.
And if we take that just a step further, it leaves us with one final lingering thought to mull over today, something that builds on everything we've unpacked so far.
Let's hear it.
If speaking words of comfort to our own children retroactively heals our inner child, what happens if we extend that exact same profound, unflinching grace to the inner children of other adults?
Oh, wow. That is a staggering implication to consider. It essentially scales the concept of retroactive healing from the family unit to the entire community.
Right. Think about it. If we start to view our partners, our friends, the difficult coworker, or even, the stranger who cuts us off in traffic,
The traffic guy again.
the traffic guy,
Mm.
if we stop seeing them as these impenetrable, frustrating adults who should, quote unquote, know better, and start seeing them as nesting dolls who are actively carrying around their own scraped knee 10-year-olds.
It changes the entire context of human conflict. You realize you aren't arguing with a lacquered adult. You're often watching a terrified inner child throwing a tantrum because they feel unsafe.
Exactly. And if we can respond to them with even a fraction of the empathy we'd give a crying child, could this echo of retroactive healing extend beyond our own family trees?
That's the dream.
Could that level of radical, imaginative empathy begin to heal the trauma of society as a whole? It's definitely something to think about.
Absolutely.
So the next time you encounter someone acting out or you find yourself reacting intensely, just remember, the house is never truly finished. Sometimes it's just the center doll knocking against the wood hoping somebody finally hears the echo.